We're in the midst of some major astrological aspects currently happening. In Capricorn especially, we've just had in January, now it's early April to 2020. In January the 12th, we had a Saturn-Pluto conjunction, which doesn't happen very often. They're in opposition, so halfway around the orbit, at about the time of 2001, Twin Towers, when the world was duped into believing that external criminals, foreign barbarians at the gate, were attacking our civilization, when in fact, once the hype and the fear-mongering and the panic subsided, lots and lots of evidence emerged to show that was, I think as the Constitution says, enemies internal as well as external. And so we're at a similar point now, 2020, where the world is in a similar panic situation. And that Plutonian-Saturn conjunction, where it's done its final balsamic phase of its orbit over the last 20 years and got to a conjunction, suggests from an astrological perspective that a new energy has arrived. So in reflection to 20 years ago, we're now at this point where Saturn, the faster of the two planets, although fast is not really a word from our relative perspective here on Earth that one might associate with a planet that takes 30 years to do a nodal orbit. But it's caught up with Pluto, which takes, 250 years to do, maybe more, to do a lap of the zodiac. And that's happened in Capricorn, towards the end of Capricorn. And these are way out planets. They are a long, long way away from Earth. So let's just have a little moment to have a think about, how that distance could have any influence on, little old us down here on planet Earth. Well, you got to get to electromagnetism, and here on the 3D world, we're living in a Newtonian billiard ball, building blocks, separate entities, bumping around and rough and tumbling into each other, this kind of thing. And that doesn't make an awful lot of sense. How could, an enormous celestial planetary orb, all those many hundreds and thousands of miles away, have anything to do with our, how could it influence us here on Earth? Well, let's just go with the moon for a second. The moon has electromagnetic, gravitational powers and forces and properties that can shift the entire ocean. We are a high percentage, 70% water. So that very much suggests that if it can pull and push the ocean back and forth as it does, then the moon, probably has an effect on our fluidity, our water content. Go a little further out, you get to the sun. I don't think there's any doubt that the sun has influence on our lives here on Earth. Perhaps not a 3D physical influence in terms of, bumping into us, say, for example. But you get into the outer dimensions, you move into a multi-dimensional area, and these environments, these cradles of electromagnetism, light, audio harmonics, this kind of thing, all part of the electromagnetic frequency. So bearing in mind, those two obvious ones, the moon and the sun, having this effect on us here on Earth, it's a possibility, even for the most skeptical mind, that other celestial planetary orbs similarly have an effect on us here on Earth. And this is where astrology comes in, and for example, masculine assertive energies come from a personal perspective from the planet Mars. Inversely, from a feminine yin as opposed to Mars yang, receptive perspective, energetic influence, we have Venus. You know, these are definite fields of energy, not physical, not material, but masculinity and femininity do certainly come from somewhere with regards to motivations and forces and drives. And so each planet has characteristics, and each sector of the 12 zodiac signs have characteristics according to astrology. And what we're looking at now in terms of this conjunction is a question mark as to what is this new. If you think of it like a wine glass with wine in it, and you wet your finger and you circle the rim, it makes a harmonic, a frequency, an echo. And so that metaphor on a solar system grand scale works fairly well, I personally think. And these, in an ocean of plasma, which is space, these harmonics and frequencies and waveforms and audio tides interact with each other and create oceans of or currents of data. Birkeland currents is an interesting area to look at if you're interested in this sort of thing. These are even intergalactic, big kind of highways of consciousness with a capital C, but intelligent data that move these electromagnetic frequencies on vast distances, in terms of light years we're talking about here. And this is singing in a choral orchestral perspective. Our planet here on Earth has a Hertz frequency at rest 7.83. This can vary depending on certain conditions, particularly what the sun's doing. But the Schumann resonance for here on Earth, Gaia, or whatever label you would like to give her, is 7.83 Hertz. Although that has been interestingly fluctuating higher recently. And similarly, all the other planets have their own song, like a whale in an ocean would have a whale song. And these Hertz frequencies, metaphysical waveforms, must, I posit, have some effect.